Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC Mura here, and in today's video we are gonna talk about Parries. As you know, right now there is an event called Summer Game Fest. The press and select influencers were chosen to check out the game and get their hands on it, and obviously we got a ton of news on Street Fighter 6. I personally didn't get to try it myself. A lot of other news channels got they will got you on the coverage and everything, but I feel like if you're watching my videos you already know what's up and you're all up to date with the news. But what we got from all of that coverage is that the game is gonna be very heavily focused on the parry mechanic. What we found out is that the drive gauge will actually deplete if you block attacks, and the parries are a good way to replenish your drive gauge. Now parries in that game sounds a lot like Alex's V-Trigger 1, which I find to be interesting. Obviously the perfect parry sounds like it will give you a punish window. Now what I find to be really interesting is that just prior to us getting all of that news, there were multiple videos on FGC Translated. It's a very popular channel. If you're probably watching my video, again, you probably know about it and have seen it, where we got a couple of videos, some of them by Mago, some of them by Daigo, and they were talking about their concerns with the parry as a mechanic. And I wanted to talk about that as well, like why do these players don't like parries, and at least why is the parry mechanic somewhat controversial. Now obviously I will leave a link to the FGC Translated videos in the description below. In that video, Mago was saying that parries as a mechanic is very casual friendly. Casuals love it and spectators love it because it looks really awesome, but players don't like having to deal with it. Daigo was saying that parries, he dislikes parries because it make it risky to try to attack. So let's first talk about why that is the case with parries. And I feel like the main issue with parries as a mechanic is that they're either useless or insanely overpowered, and there's not really a middle ground in my opinion. Parries, obviously, like Street Fighter 5, like say Fangs or Armika's parries, they can be very useless, while a parry like Street Fighter 3's parry is very strong and is probably the center mechanic of that game. Let's talk about a situation here where we're gonna take a look at Gil and Rose in her lovely mod, and let's say why parries change the game, because they impact the game in many ways than you would actually imagine. Let's talk about fireball game at first, because this is always a big concern. Obviously a lot of the fireball zoning depend on distance and advantage. So for example, if I'm Gil here and I'm blocking Rose's fireball, this is gonna leave Rose at a plus 13 advantage. This is gonna impact my ability to jump the next fireball and her ability to throw another one, right? But if I parry the fireball, now I am minus 9, right? And the second one here, for example, I was minus 7. So this means that parries will pretty much make it the fireball game different, right? The advantage is different and it's gonna affect the ability of Rose to throw another fireball or not, etc. right? So this is an interesting point of it. The other one is the gauges. Now we know in Street Fighter 6, if you happen to block attacks, you lose drive gauge, which seems to be the most important gauge for you to maintain, and by parrying them you will regain drive gauge. So pretty much you are always encouraged to parry fireballs, right? Which kinda denies the fireballs their main utility. If you ever really wondered like why characters have projectiles in fighting games, especially 2D fighting games, it's pretty much to get the opponent to act. So when Guile is throwing a light fireball like that, the idea is for him to close the distance. Maybe he will see you jump and then he will get an anti-air, right? Or if he's throwing like a bunch of fireballs, the idea obviously is not to ship you, the idea is for him just to get you to act. Right now, parries kinda impact this. There is also another aspect, and that is when you block fireballs, you are you're losing some health due to ship damage, but parries will not actually cost you anything. So these are some important elements to keep in mind. The neutral game, the fireball game, gets very heavily impacted by parries. The fireball game in Street Fighter 6 is gonna be completely different, and I think we kinda got an idea of that given how fast Guile's Sonic Booms looked and how Ryu's fireballs seem really fast as well. It seems that instead of balancing fireballs around the parry system, what Capcom is trying to do is make them really fast so that they are hard to parry, right? Maybe that is what they're going for, but again, we'll have to wait and see, obviously, as the games still have a lot of fine-tuning to go through. Now, what is the other element that is very important when it comes to parries is, block strings, right? Because in fighting games in general, there is always frame data, right? For example, for Gil, this jab is +2, so he gets to do 2 of them. If Rose tries to interrupt, she will get hit. The only way for Rose to beat that is by using an EX invincible move or like her super, so she have to respect frame data. Now, Gil have a 2-frame parry, which is probably as good as it's gonna get as a parry in Street Fighter 5, but parries in Street Fighter 6 are frame 1. This means that you can't really do a block string with any gaps in it. Jab can get parried and you can get punished for it. Now, Gil is one of the very few characters who have like a 2-frame ability, right? But even a 2-frame parry is not as good as a frame 1 parry. Frame 1 parry is absurdly strong if you don't understand the ramifications. So this means that there is pretty much no guaranteed pressure. And every situation where you're trying to block string your opponent is an inherent mix-up. Now, take of that as you will, but when players like Daigo and Mago was saying that they don't like the mechanic, well, the idea is that you're pretty much taking a risk every time you're throwing a normal, and we did see in Street Fighter 6, the footage we saw, that when you happen to get hit as your move is recovering, whether that is on whiff or on block, you are in counter hit state. So you're potentially eating a lot of damage, or if you happen to get parried and then punished. This is something that you have to keep in mind. The idea here is that it is almost always better to wait for the opponent to whiff than it is to engage, because the risk of engaging can be very difficult. Now, obviously, parries can be baited, right? For example, here if Gil tries to parry this, he can get baited and get punished, and obviously the Street Fighter 6 parries have recoveries as well, and you will lose your drive gauge, so they do carry some risks, right? And obviously you can always jab and then throw the opponent after, so they do carry some risk. But what I'm talking about is every situation now have risk reward. Risk reward means that it's a guess, and what a lot of the top players don't like is inconsistency, right? Players in general, the higher level you get, the more likely that you will like consistency. You will like the certainty of the outcome. Now, some players love risk reward, and you will see that grapplers in particular probably like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what the top players like Daigo and Mago was saying, that their fear that it could make the game too defensive, and that throwing out moves or being aggressive might be too risky, right? But obviously we have to play the game and look for that in ourselves. Like you will never know until you try it out yourself. And yeah, that is pretty much it. What do you guys think about parries? Do you like them? Do you not? I will say personally, if I'm being completely honest, I never loved parries. It was never a mechanic that I was the biggest fan of. I personally like when things are more consistent, but we will have to wait and see how impactful they are. And obviously, again, they can be baited and they can be heavily punished because they do have recovery in Street Fighter 6, and they don't seem to be as overwhelmingly powerful as the Street Fighter 3 parries. And obviously, we still have to wait and see. Maybe there will be some crazy OSs with parries, parries, as there is a lot to be seen there. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment, it helps the channel so much. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon, Discord, Twitter and Twitch pages in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.